Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is August 18th, 2017, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us. I'm here live mostly Monday through Thursday, and my friend Barry Prince is testing the waters on Friday to see if he wants to take over that time slot. So thanks for joining us. Today, I actually invited Michael, Michael, I don't even know your last name, but he has a show on this station called Primertime. My last
name shall remain unsaid
for
safety reasons.
Well, he's the host of Primertime here on UCY TV. I've been a guest on his show, and we get along, but we have a little bit of a difference of opinion, and we actually agree on a lot more things than it would appear from the surface, because we disagree on some of the details. And today is a discussion about one of those things. I beg your pardon. Hold on.
Okay.
I thought I turned that down, and I.
Okay, I got a call at the same time. I got a call right at the clock. So.
Well, look, that hardly ever happens, but that figures. I was kind of like preoccupied with our conversation today. The other day we had on Heidi Lambert and Mimi Gurman. And during the course of the conversation, we brought up Israel. And Michael had Skyped me about Israel. And then he says, why aren't you talking about Israel? So I thought, well, let's talk about it on Thursday, because I really had not had anybody scheduled. I think this is a good day, actually, after this week of fascism and this exercise in white supremacy that really is inflaming.
It was a shame when all those Nazi tanks came, crashing down through Minnesota and invaded the United States. If we could have only held the Sudetenland, everything would have been fine.
What are you talking about?
I think this whole thing of Nazi and fascism is big and overblown.
No, it is not. Let me tell you what. My daughter got assaulted, and I think I shared that with you. The day after Trump's inauguration, those people knew exactly he was giving them the green light. And if you look at the videos of what happened in Charlotte on Thursday night, when they got violent and the protesters stayed peaceful, and the agitation that happened in Charlottesville on Saturday morning did not come from the protesters. They defended themselves.
It came from both sides. There's nobody innocent in anything.
Maybe on Thursday morning, but Friday night it did not. And there's plenty of video about that.
You talking about that torchlight parade thing?
The torchlight parade got violent on campus at night.
Okay, well, but I mean, everything like that gets violent. I mean,
Look, let's just
you
talk
can have
reality. In my view, there is no room for white supremacy in the United States.
No buildings burnt. There was no weave shop looted. The Taco Bell in the rim shop didn't go up in flames. All in all, that's pretty for what's recently happened in this nation, that's fairly nonviolent. A couple of
One
punches
woman
thrown
died.
and yelling.
You think that's
No,
equivalent
that's
to
the
buildings
next day.
burning?
That's the next day. The next day is completely different than the night before. The next day, there was all kinds of agitation from both sides.
You know why? Because the white supremacists had agitated them. This is about allowing white supremacists.
Wait up. It's not about white supremacy. It's
Yes,
absolutely not about white supremacy. I disagree. And to be honest with you, I'm not any kind of white supremacist.
What do you think this is about then? What do you think their march was about?
I think this is a fully funded cultural shift that we're going under. That's honestly, that we either go under this or the money gets pulled. But here's the great big secret: the money's going to get pulled either way. And if they can,
here you talk about these underlying causes of cultural dishevelment. I mean, absolutely. I agree with you that there are people pulling the strings, but you know what you can't do is you can't get.
People are pulling the strings
right here in Astoria, we had a whole Confederate flag, little, up and down the street, saying, we believe in the Confederacy. Right here in racist Oregon, who was the only state to be created a white state, where it was perfectly legal to shoot a black person on sight unseen. So I'm going to tell you what.
That was a while ago. I mean, like in California, a long time ago.
Right in Astoria. Do you know that in Astoria, a woman went up there to object to the Confederacy flag because the Confederate flag is like saying you believe in racism, in believing that you believe in white supremacy.
If you enjoyed the Dukes of Hazzard, the Confederate flag is a completely overblown issue.
You know what?
And seriously,
not.
Wait up. If a flag or like a 70-year-old statue or a 70-plus-year-old statue truly impacts your life sucks. You've got much bigger issues than that.
Do you know why they picked Charlottesville?
This is not even anywhere close to real. This is manufactured outrage, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there's that same kind of media narrative going on right now. And honestly, you can I think so. I mean, shit. Trump's on the cover of The Economist right now wearing a KKK hood. All right, now I find that to be offensive because
I find him to be offensive. He ought to be impeached. He's a despicable human being.
But everybody knew who he was, and everybody had the opportunity to know who he was before he got there.
Okay, so you want to talk about why he's in the White House? He certainly did not get elected. He was selected to undermine and undercut every government. He is Pinochet 2.0. And what do people think?
Look, I think it was a perfect storm when Trump showed up, right? Look, in the end, Hillary could only beat Trump, and Trump could only beat Hillary. It was manufactured, but everything like this is manufactured because in the end, the money has to keep rolling into the war machine. Because nothing.
That's exactly right.
Not even.
You and I agree on that one. The war machine.
Not even nuclear makes as much money as the war machine. And this is something that really, really offends me. That everybody screams about Trump and he's a Nazi and he's a fascist. Straight up honest, he is the very first president in my entire life, and I'm not 21 years old. He's the first president in my entire life that has turned off a war. He ended that war in Syria, and what did we hear? Oh, he's colluding with the Russians, blah, blah, blah. He didn't get us into another goddamn war.
You are kidding me. You believe he ended the war. You are absolutely unaware of what he actually has done in Syria. He has not ended the war. We personally are not, but we are giving boatloads of money to other people to bomb them. So we've just hired mercenaries.
The bombing is turned off. The bombing is turned off. The United States and the Russians are working together to turn off the bombing.
I'll tell you what.
And here's even more proof that I think that he's not as bad as everybody says. That he has let the Russians occupy, or I shouldn't say let, but the agreement dictates that the Russians occupy the sector between Israel and Syria, not the United States. And I think that's a big fucking thumb in the eye of the great big war machine. Because, straight up honest, all wars in the Middle East.
So let me just get clear here. You think that Trump is against the war machine?
I think Trump is against the war machine if it doesn't necessarily jive with his machinations.
With him getting rich and using the American, he is a racist. Why has he not disavowed himself? Why does he equivocate? Oh, well, there's hate on both sides. Let me tell you what,
there is hate on both sides.
It's not about hate.
It's
it's about these people saying that we believe that we have a right to have white supremacy in this country. There is no place in America for white supremacy.
Have you seen the mayor of Charlottesville, the mayor of the city this happened in, Wes Bellamy? He's saying that he wants Charlottesville to be a chocolate city. He's got no time for anybody white in that city. He won't even.
He's white himself. What are you talking about?
No, Wes Bellamy is not white. Wes Bellamy is a black man.
The governor is white.
Wes Bellamy is a black man. I swear to God, he is. On TV and CNN, and I didn't have to adjust my focus or anything. He's a black dude, and not only is he very virulently black nationalist and all that, that's fine. He is a black dude. Let him be a black nationalist. But you know what? His black nationalism doesn't get to kick me out of fucking Chick-fil-A.
Okay, so I have. Let me just put it to you this way, Charlotte. You're talking about Charlottesville, Virginia, right?
Right.
Not a black man. His name is Michael Sanger. Singer.
Well, okay, where is Wes Bellamy?
Signer. His name is Signer. Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia.
I may have it. Maybe he's the vice mayor then. But Wes
This
Bellamy,
man is a white man. So this is the point here. You're going off on a tangent.
I got them. The city's mistaken, or maybe I got the title mistaken. But I'm talking about this dude, Wes Bellamy. And that's the guy who is he's just as virulent. He spouts just as much hate out of his mouth, but his hate is acceptable because it's pro-minority or whatever. Well, that doesn't work, because if you really want to start breaking down things into numbers, and both you and I know that numbers are what only count in this country. Numbers and definition. The numbers don't support his side. The numbers don't necessarily support any side.
What are you talking about? What side? The people of Charlottesville want racism to end. When he talks about being a chocolate city, it means white and black living together in harmony.
Obviously not. If you've got, I'd like to find out what Wes Bellamy's position is. Hang on, I'm going to try and look this dude up, because he said some very virulent things. He might be in Durham, North Carolina, if I'm.
No, he is the vice chair. Vice Mayor of Charlottesville. He is the vice. Okay. What did you hear him say? Where did you hear?
I saw him on TV. He is absolutely not somebody who represents all of the community. He's somebody who represents a very vocal minority of the community, and with the help of media within brackets.
What did he say that you found offensive? What did he say?
Well, number one, he won't say Trump. He says 45.
There's a lot of people who won't say Trump. That's part of the resistance.
Those people are fucking idiots.
They're not idiots. Stop calling them idiots. They're people like me who think that Trump is. I call him Traitor Trump. That's his name. I refuse to call him president. He is a traitor. He has broken the emoluments clause from day one and given us the finger.
The emoluments clause isn't anything to do with treason.
Yes, it does. Because you know what? He's making money off of us, colluding with foreign nations.
Treason occurs when you give aid to an enemy.
He is giving aid to the enemy. You think he's not helping people financially around the country who have no interest in our country? He's making personal financial gain.
But that's not the definition of treason. See, we're at a problem here because we're using a lot of emotionally charged buzzwords, and that's fine. That has a place, and I totally respect your emotion. I think your emotion, your power, and your drive is awesome. But we have to get to a point where we're using and we agree on this. He is attempting to
overthrow our government. You don't get it.
Yeah, okay. He was elected. He was selected. However, he's got he's the boss. He can do whatever he wants.
Do effing that. He is not the boss. We are the boss. This is the United States of America. We have a constitution, and we need to put pressure on our elected officials to get this guy out before he harms our country any further.
Disagree.
He has put in people in every single cabinet member, wholly unqualified or personally financially invested, most of whom have lied on their financial disclosure forms or any other forms of. And I mean, honestly, Jeff Sessions is a liar and a bigot and a KKK member, and he is our attorney.
And Hillary called around.
I don't want to hear about Hillary. I am not a Hillary supporter, and she's not the president.
But what I'm saying is there's no option here, because exactly what you're accusing Trump of, you can make the exact same accusations against Obama. You can make the exact same accusations.
You know what? You can't make the accusations against Obama. No president has openly broken the emoluments clause. Bull. I call bull on you on that. And nobody has openly sided with
Obama didn't break the emoluments clause like Trump did, but Obama did plenty of things that were fairly fucking.
I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm no Obama fan. I'm no Bush fan. I'm no Clinton fan. To be honest, there isn't really in a long ways, but nobody has been so openly brazen racist. He refuses to denounce the white supremacists and say, "Look,
totally denounced them."
He did not. He did not say, "I don't want the support of K2." He has not come out by name. He has not called conference. No, he didn't. I heard his press conference. He said, "We denounce racism. We hate bigotry. We hate the Nazis." He did not say, "I do not want your support." We have to look at the facts on this. We have to look at the facts. He had a press conference right after it happened, like I think not long after it happened, where he didn't say anything incendiary. Okay, and then he had a press conference yesterday. How can you defend him? I find it completely like. The gaslighting, like the guy is an abuser. He is an abuser to the max hilt.
He's a grabber of genitalia.
No, he is abused. He publicly abuses his children. Putting Ivanka Trump at the G20 is another way to abuse his child. Period. He is a selfish, self-centered, small-minded, illiterate bigot. He has no capacity for the job, and he is intentionally going in there with his wrecking ball crew and destroy. Why do you think he wants to destroy every institution in our country except the military? The only thing he wants to pump up is the military. Why? He wants
every other department.
Why? I'm losing you there, Michael.
I think. I got no problem with him destroying like departments and stuff in this country, because honestly, the only thing we should have this government doing is building highways and having an army to kick whoever's ass is coming over here. And the army is not a social experiment. The army has basically two jobs, and that's to destroy things and kill people.
Our Constitution called for not having a standing army. Under good reason.
I can go with that, but along with things, times have changed, and maybe we're at a position where we probably need to.
Times have changed because the United States thinks everything on the planet is their asset. It's their financial interest. It's their country's interest. Your minerals in Afghanistan are ours.
You're almost minimizing it at that point, because then you say the United States like it's this, single entity, and you totally miss, like, we actually are the muscle for the military-industrial complex. And in the end, nothing happens militarily unless there is financing. You cannot build 10,000 bombs. You cannot build 10 million rounds of live ammunition. You have to have financing to do that.
So you know why, Michael? This is the thing. You know why? It's easier to build weapons than it is to create real jobs. That's why. It's easier to build weapons and machinery and start keeping war going on.
Let me ask you kind of a pointed question, and it might be a little bit roundabout, but I think you'll see it in the end. What's the greatest value of war?
None. There is no value in war.
Well, you're not thinking about it from the position of you now hold all the chips. You've got all the cookies. What's the greatest value of war? Look, you don't need more cookies, because you've already got all the cookies. You in fact, you own the kitchen. You can make the cookies. All right. So you don't need that. You own the advertising for the cookies. You control all that. What you need to do is you need to eliminate any other possible cookie bakers. And how do you do that? You send them to war. You get them all fucked up in the head or blown up or killed or dead, and then you give them a medal, and then you turn them into a cop when they're mentally broken. They are no longer a threat to your cookie empire. That's the greatest value of war. And at the end, that's probably the most dangerous portion of usury. That's like the most effective slavery in all.
That's actually true.
That's
actually, I mean, to be honest, usury is a very effective form of slavery. The thing is, though, usury is
the key to everything, man. And when it comes down to it, look, all right,
Michael, we did not have the luxury of war. This is my point.
Statues and the Confederacy, a slave costs money. This could be like almost a distasteful conversation, but it's a distasteful subject, and it almost has to be had. But if you turn a slave and you look at a slave as a non-human, this is,
you know what? I'm not going to talk about slaves. You know why? Because I'm going to not discuss the value of war and the value of slavery and how we were going to put a price.
If you don't understand,
it's not that we don't understand it, Michael. Let's put it to you this way. We understand it at a visceral level. How we fight it effectively is with love. We need a love revolution. We need to decide we're not going to participate in their bullshit war. We need to decide we're going to take it back locally, get off our asses and start a garden, start interconnecting with people who know how to grow, how to do things. Because otherwise, we're going to be dependent on them all the time.
I think everybody
it's not just growing our own food. It's effectively creating our own government. What's happened, I talk about our Constitution, and then you fight back, and we get into this whole thing about, really, we don't have a government right now. And you know why? Because we have stopped. This is why all government is
overlords.
This is why we need community rights. This is why people need to go knocking door to door to say, hey, will you sign a petition to get community rights on the ballot? Because in the United States of America, communities have no rights. They are subjugated to corporations, to the federal government, and to the state. And very often corporations buy the state and the federal government to subjugate the communities. So until you get a Bill of Rights in your community on the ballot and people pass it in and give you equal rights with corporations, we are super screwed. This is all we've seen since the polluters started.
I think that's a fantasy quest. You're tilting at windmills. Because
you know what?
One, wait up. You're ignoring the enormous force that corporation exerts, and under this system that we operate now, there's no possible way to change the corporation and the individual.
You know what happened in Newport, Oregon?
I really detest the whole thing about,
Michael,
if you want to change the system, you get in there and you change it from the inside. Well, guess what? That's not what they say about the mafia.
Michael,
nobody ever
we're not
says,
the mafia.
If you're tired of mafia crime, you should join the mafia and try to get them to change.
We're not a
mafia.
Inside. So this is the point here, though. I'm not saying, that it's going to be a permanent fix, because like here in Newport, Oregon, let me tell you what, this is one of the things that the Environmental Legal Defense Fund talk about all the time. We need to change our definition of success. Because just because we get community rights, and Newport, Oregon has now been able to fend off aerial spraying. It's been outlawed, aerial spraying in Newport, Oregon. That was a huge plus for those people, because people out there were getting very, very sick because they're right on the coast. They get a lot of wind contamination from Fukushima, from Diablo Canyon, from Hanford. Hanford spews out into the Pacific. It all goes on the coast up there in Newport. People are sick anyways. And then to get aerial spraying, people were very, very sick. So they got community rights, and they got aerial spraying banned. But Kai said, who is going to be on my show next month, his name is Kai Hushka. He's with Environmental Legal Defense Fund. He said, we have to change our definition of success, because we win this battle doesn't mean they're not coming back. So we're going to have to figure out the next time they come after us how we're going to...
I think the battle that you're fighting is almost guaranteed to be a loser, because you're not actually focusing at the real issue. You're focusing on a symptom. I almost have to look at this whole thing like from a medical perspective, and like view the problem.
Okay, so where do we cut the cancer out? How deep do you have? Where do you want to go to cut the cancer out?
We are gonna have to go right near the heart. I swear to God.
That's where
the problem is. Step number one, you excise Israeli control from every bit of the United States. There should not be any dual citizens in any position of power or influence in the United States. Number two, you cut that lobbying from Israel like off now. Treat it just like we were having like the Russians or the Chinese or the goddamn Saudi Arabians coming over. They don't act like Americans. They don't act with American interests at heart. Everything, no matter how much they claim to be a freedom-loving, red-blooded American Ben Shapiro-style son of a bitch, everything is Israel first. And then you start getting into the white privilege thing. And I'll straight up honest, Jews are only white when there's a cop around, they need a table at a restaurant, or they got a chance, they need a cab, or they got a chance to lecture
man.
About their privilege.
What are you talking about?
I straight up believe that. I think there's a great big problem with Jewish influence in the United States, and I think that.
I agree with you on the Jewish influence, but I don't think that we should make any slurs about Jews being just Jews when cops are around. That is so like outrageous. I agree with you about the influence on our government.
It's absolutely look. Yeah, that's like the best white privilege is the white privilege you can shed off and then assume the victimhood, right?
Well, this is
you
the
get all the
interesting
benefits
thing
of
about
being
the
white.
Jewish
You
religion.
you don't get harassed by a cop. You don't get any bullshit when you go get a table at a restaurant. A cab doesn't like look at you and like take off. You don't get followed around the grocery store like you're getting shoplift. But then you also get the opportunity to like lecture.
You know what? That's where, in your experience, but there are people in eastern states where being Jewish, you are harassed. I mean, there is a lot of anti-Semitism.
I think any reports of harassment against Jews in the United States is magnified through the media magnifying glass about 6.
Did you not hear our show on Monday with Mimi Gurman? What people were saying about her being a Jew, just because she was Jewish, they were making horrible remarks about her.
Well,
I mean, it's kind of like me. This is how I feel though, as a female.
You set yourself out in the public eye, and you got to expect somebody to chuck a rock at you every once in a while. And if you can't handle that, then that might not be your thing.
What we're talking about is the acceptability of chucking rocks. I disagree with that. You know what I do when I see those comments?
But the opposite side chucks plenty of rocks. The opposite side of what you're discussing chucks plenty of rocks.
You know what? That's true. And I report those comments myself too. To be honest, I report all these comments when I'm on a video and I
don't because I've got an issue with that. And I'll tell you what, I did listen to your show with Mimi and the other lady. And they were talking about like this whole reporting of comments things and they were getting people fired and shutting people's businesses down. I'll tell you what, I find that to be despicable. I find that far more despicable than somebody's personal views that they've got actually no influence on the rest of society with other than they got a big fat yapper. I think ruining a person's livelihood, taking food out of their children's mouth, I'll tell you what, if you did that to me, I'd be fairly fucking angry and be looking for vengeance and probably not of like the rhetorical type.
Look, you know what this is about? You know why they do it? Because you're not going to be able to agree to you know how many black people are shot in Portland and they come out and, support this? That's why those neo-Nazis are very real.
I got a problem with saying that it's black people getting shot in Portland because
I'm telling you what,
they're involved in crime.
No, they are not.
Going out and doing
that is actually a complete falsehood.
That's not a complete falsehood, and I can provide statistics to back that up. Look, 50% of the crime in the United States, 50% of the violent crime and theft in the United States is committed by black males between the ages of 14 and 35. All right, that percentage of the population, when you look at it. Because blacks are like 13.5% of the population. You figure above you cleave that to men and women, so now you got 6.5%. Now you've got this fighting age male subset of a 6.5% group of the population. in the end, it comes out working out like 3.5%, maybe 2.5% of the population is responsible for 50% of the violent crime and theft in this nation. And I think it's like racism be damned or whatever. I think it's irresponsible and truly un-American to look at that kind of an issue, no matter how many feelings get hurt or whatever.
I am going to say a few things about the statistics of black death in my view, as a white person, because I'm not in the black community. So I cannot say unequivocally. I can tell you about my family. I have my sister married a black man, so I have black nieces and nephews. 2 of them have been in and out of the system, not because of their black father, but because of their white mother. My sister was a drug addict and dragged her family down. And they lived and they have been nabbed. I'll tell you, the one nephew who is actually a pretty straight shooter, very sweet person, solid job, really great guy. He stopped driving a car in Anaheim, California, because he works 10 miles from home. He has an old Mercedes-Benz that he drives. He loves it. It's kind of his little pride and joy. Makes him feel, well off.
I can totally agree with it.
He gets pulled over
and enjoy that
at
feeling
least
of an
once
old
a
car.
month. He gets shaken down by the police, the same police officers. He's worked at the same place for 10 years. He got pulled over at least once a month at a minimum. He said probably twice a month he would get pulled over. Like, what are you doing in that car? Now, why is that?
Let me give you a kind of a counter to that. I live in a town of 1,700 people. I am, 26 miles away from a Walmart, and that's kind of like, on the Big Max index of things. This town has been described as a little drinking village with a small fishing problem. It's kind of a tiny town. I got a cop in this town who, I swear to God, lives a lot. An empty lot, a street, and 2 houses over from me. If I didn't throw like a girl, I could chuck a rock into his yard. That dude has a drug dog for this little tiny town, and he runs around here like a goddamn maniac. He harasses old ladies. He gets.
Then you know what? The community really needs to put pressure on the sheriff to get rid of him. Period.
Okay, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Now is where we start getting into usury and the whole issue of this isn't racism, this isn't Trump, this isn't nothing. This kid is a rich kid playing cop. He's like Baby Huey, right? So his parents basically bought my entire town new police cars. We got like 3 new Dodge Chargers and a Tahoe.
Contact the governor's office then. Then you go over their heads. Contact your elected officials.
Now we start getting into that whole thing.
Well, then contact the ACLU.
If you want to change the government, you got to get into it. You got to appeal to it. Number one, you cannot appeal to redress from the system that is actively putting it in you. That's the definition of insanity.
You know what? This is a perfect issue of people refusing to actually use the resources that are available to them. If you guys have a violent cop, there are actually organizations who will help defend your community from them and force the government to change that person, no matter how much money
I think that
works.
Might work in bigger metro areas, but that ain't gonna fly.
Has anybody in your town ever contacted an organization that helps defend you from that, or the ACLU, or anybody, or your government?
The Texas Rangers.
That's
the only one that's going to have any kind of effect on this, because honestly, any other public citizens group or non-governmental organization that has anything to do with this, number one is going to be laughed out of town, because they're going to send
this
people
is the
that
question:
don't
is
fit
anybody
that don't fit in with this place? They can't identify with the people here. They come in screaming about the patriarchy and shit like that. And the problem isn't the patriarchy. The problem is this cop's a jackass.
Well, no, this is the point. Has anybody in the town, has anybody considered taking legal action? Has anybody sued him?
Oh, yeah. It's under consideration. I mean, it's under consideration for myself.
So
it's under consideration from a couple other people.
So people would be willing to put their names down.
Now you've just applied a field to the system, and you've entered at a minimum of a 1.5-year process to get anything kind of done with this.
How long has this guy been around, Michael? You can get an injunction to have him removed.
He's been a cop in town for about 4 years. That means you got to get a judge. what judge is going to issue an injunction against a cop? It doesn't happen down here. It does not happen. You have to catch that cop naked with an 11-year-old boy to get an injunction.
I hope that you are completely wrong, and I would challenge you to contact the ACLU or some organization that's an attorney firm.
See, that's where you're missing it, right? Because the ACLU don't fly down here, because the ACLU pushes many, many values that are contrary to honestly, to the culture in this area.
Actually, that's not true. ACLU defends our Constitution, period. That's what they do. They're lawyers. They go to court. They defend the Constitution. They defend our civil rights. They don't push values.
But you know what? But you know what they see? But people don't see that. People see that the ACLU is the one.
You know why they don't see it? Because they're not looking.
Wait up. They see that the ACLU are the people who defend the Satanists in Oklahoma who want to put up a copy of the Black Bible in front of the Oklahoma State House. That's who they see the ACLU as. They don't see him as anybody defending any kind of constitution.
You know what? If they actually met an attorney, if they actually talked to somebody, and you know what? If you were to call the ACLU, they might be able to refer you to an organization or a place that could actually be closer to home, that would actually really be willing to help you and give you some legal advice. That's the point. It's like there's no reason to allow. See, this whole victimhood thing. We're victims of the cops. We're victims of the war machine.
Part of the Mac Index down here is that some people will take care of their own shit after a while. And he's going to piss off the wrong guy. And you know what? We end up on CNN, missing cop, cartel-related, blah, blah, blah. He's in a crab trap. And he's going to mess with somebody. He's going to mess with the wrong guy. I mean, look, it's a fishing village. This is a town full of rough and tumble dudes, So, I mean, it's problems like that. You
well,
cannot,
this all gets back to the idea of the war machine. Like allowing the bullies.
He's part of the war machine.
Yeah, I bet he is. I'm sure he is. That is the
absolutely. He runs around with a weapons load that sort of makes me envious at times.
I mean, this is what made us start talking about Israel, because you know what? Israel has a big hand. Their job is to promote war on the planet. Period.
Absolutely. How many cops in the United States, how many cops, sheriffs, police departments, whatever law enforcement in the United States goes to Israel annually to train?
I don't know. How many?
It's a quite large number. It's probably at least 50 large departments a year and an untold number of small departments. And if the department can't go, they send Israeli trainers here. They're turning us into the new Palestinians is what they're getting ready to do. And I mean, never mind Senate Bill 720, which says
they who. Sort of when you're talking about them, who is they? Like, let's just be clear. They're turning us into what?
The Hebrews enslaving mankind. They is the Hebrews enslaving you. Them is the Hebrews enslaving mankind. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Wow, that's
it's not all Hebrews.
So you actually really believe it is
are just as bad, and Zionists include a lot of Southern Baptists. But here's the thing that the true hardcore Jews, who totally appreciate the Baptist support and the Zionist American support that loves Israel. They only love you because they want Jesus to come back and fuck your area up something fierce. Like they want Jesus to come down, and that's like the rapture or whatever's coming next. Book 2, Jesus come back and kick some ass. That's why they love Israel.
Well, those people actually believe also that this is the time when Jesus is coming back, that we're living through the tribulation. I mean,
I'll tell you what, if you were to look outside, it could look somewhat tribulative.
I think this is the issue. My problem with the Bible is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They wrote it.
My problem with the Bible is it's supposed to be the Word of God, but it's translated into 58 different languages. You get the hip-hop Bible, you get the text message Bible, you get the modern.
But you know what?
Bible.
Like I told my kids, there is a lot of good, solid humanity and good, beautiful things in the Bible, and there is a lot of good guidance. So you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Kind of like with the I Ching, sort of like if you study the Buddha or any of these ancient. I mean, this is where
I think in the end, all the major religions kind of say the same thing.
Pretty much, there's really only one God. That's what I think. One universal light or whatever that thing is. That I think we have it in us. I don't think it's outside of us. I think it's a choice.
I'm going to say something that I think might surprise you. I think that the big secret, and if there is a creator, the creator is a feminine energy, not a male energy. I don't think that God, quote unquote, is an old white man with a beard throwing lightning bolts at people.
Yeah.
I think it's far more likely that, God is actually some sort of like large-breasted, rotund woman feeding many, many children.
I don't think
Like,
there's any like gender. I think there's just like universal creation of love encompassing both genders. I mean, gender is actually a very limited way to look at how creatures are. I mean, when you think about it, the possibilities of what makes life, having a gender identity or gender anything, or even the whole way we procreate on this planet is kind of an odd thing if you look at the great picture of it. But I think there's a gigantic energy that if you plug into it, you become the most full whatever you are of that, like it allows you to fill you, it literally fills you up. I mean, look, our conversation started because I wanted to really allow a voice and ask you questions, because I have to say, I vehemently am not, I believe in the Jewish, people have a right to their own religions. And I believe that the Jewish people have beautiful traditions. I know many loving, beautiful Jewish people who are great. And I'm just going to, they're not out to kill or dominate. And the idea that their leaders would be doing that would be so objectionable. Just kind of like most Christians would say that Christians are out to dominate the planet. It's the same type of objectionable thing. So I really, but in terms of Israel, I believe that Israel is an intrinsic part of the war.
With exactly what you just stated. You almost cannot separate the two, and it's deliberately conflated between
absolutely
people who say, you say Israel and you can't mean that, not all Jews. But then at the same time you look at Israel, where
yes, which is why I got
Jewish
excommunicated
state, and then like 70% of Jews claim to be atheists. So
I get that, because I did not understand that until I offended my niece's husband so gravely. You know what I mean? Like, I can't see how people can really honestly believe this Israel is the Israel of God. That just shocks me that anyone would think that.
What totally surprises me about the whole Israel and God thing is how, seriously, straight up, Polacks, Russians, Hungarians, Southern Germans, people who burn in the sun claim to have like 5,000, like God said 5,000 years ago. Straight up honest, Israel leads the world in skin cancer. Yeah, they've got awesome technology and blah, 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 whatever, thanks to, the Uncle Sucker and his many millions we give every year. But it leads the world in cases of skin cancer. If that's truly like where you belong, you don't get skin cancer. There's like not a prevalence of skin cancer amongst the dark-skinned Arab and Palestinian population. It's the people that look like Scarlett Johansson with some Russian or German last name in the middle of Israel that get the skin cancer. You don't fucking belong there. That ain't your homeland. Sorry. No matter what the book says.
Well, whether they have a thing is, I think they have a right to be there, but they can't be. Really, it is an apartheid state.
They got no ties to the area other than
but it's been created. This is the point. It's been created, but the point is this: it cannot be an apartheid state. And frankly, if we look at it, they're practically at mission accomplished. Palestine is pretty much their next step is to start going into Jordan. I mean, if you look at the original,
they want into Jordan, they want into Syria. Have you ever?
And they want Lebanon, also a portion of Lebanon.
They want Iraq split into 3 parts, and then the big enchilada is taken over Iran, and then you get from the Tigris to the Euphrates. That's all Hebrew land. That's like part of this thing called the Oded Yinon plan. You can look that up. They want to split Iraq into 3 countries.
So what you're talking about kind of is a Jewish, what do they call that? What do they call that? In Islam when they're the jihad. This is you're talking about a Jewish jihad.
No. I'm talking about this is a plan. This ain't some like crazy ass jihad that all because they offended us.
Well, jihad is not because you offend us. It's about really about
that's a fatwa. Fatwa is because you offended.
Yeah, but isn't a jihad
Okay.
like when you just, they're going to spread Islam around the planet? Like
No, I
that's the
don't
whole
think
idea.
I don't think they necessarily care about spreading Judaism around the planet. As a matter of fact, I think that's absolutely not their plan. Because honestly, I think you got to look at them like they're a band of pirates. And a band of pirates, you split the booty, and everybody got a certain share, and you got more sailors, and you got lesser of a share.
Oh, I
I
beg
don't
your
think they
pardon.
want any more.
The
I
jihad
don't
is
think they
the
want any more
struggler.
Jews. And to be straight up honest, I don't think they want the Jews they got now, because the original Jews are like Ethiopians, right? They're dark as fuck. You read about them. You read it in the Bible. There's the Psalm of Psalms, and they talk about. I mean, this is
Michael,
this is
I
the
think
old
we're
school
getting
Jews.
off topic here. I think what we're the
We
really
are.
idea,
We're all
and the
over
reason
place.
is because the reason I'm bringing it back is we only have 15 minutes, because I'm not interested in my thing is really the offense of our tax dollars, and all of the senators and congresspeople who make the decisions, almost all of them who make the decisions on whether we fund Israel, are all dual citizens. Most of them. Almost all of them. I don't know on the congressional side, but I know on the Senate side, almost every single one of them. I think there was only one. You're a dual citizen of Israel. So how can those people make a sound decision what's in the best interest of the United States? I mean, we're spending billions of dollars giving money to Israel. For what?
Absolutely.
We can't even rebuild our own infrastructure. And if Israel...
And I love how Israel's got, oh, look at Israel, they got socialized healthcare. Well, fuck yeah, because they got us making their war for them and giving them money.
Right, exactly. They can afford it because we're giving them money to pay for their own socialized health care. Their life is great.
Well, this kind of comes into a Latin phrase, and it's easy to look up. It's qui bono, right? Quibono, two different words. Who benefits? And you got to look at that every time. And there's many ways to say it. Follow the money. All right? Every damn time. Anything the United States does in a military fashion overseas, it only ends up benefiting Israel. We got to go out and kill ISIS because, fuck, they're worse than Hitler. Trump loves ISIS, blah, 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 whatever. But, ISIS runs around killing other Muslims. They blow up goddamn mosques. They kill everybody except for their most hated enemy, the Jews. And then on top of that, whenever ISIS
let's be clear, Michael.
anywhere near Israel,
I'm not going to talk about ISIS like they're real, though. ISIS is the CIA. ISIS is not a real. I mean,
ISIS is the boogeyman, honestly, just like this whole Nazi thing.
Oh, by the way, I looked up the word jihad. Jihad is the struggle or fight against the enemies of Islam, or the spiritual struggle within oneself against sin. So there you go.
Okay.
But okay. I just wanted to get that
clear
because it was not
it's like a Jewish jihad then. I don't think it's a Jewish jihad by any means.
No, but see, you think this is a much bigger program. And in that vein, I might agree with you because I think that Trump was intentionally put in to destroy America. And I think he is a traitor. I don't think that he has done half of what he says he has. Forbes did a really great article on the real numbers of his jobs creation, which is a big pile. It was super exaggerated. The jobs he says he created were on the progressional chart. They were probably going to happen anyways. He did not add them in. I mean, he has alienated and knocked our country down in world stature. He has intentionally knocked ourselves down. Maybe not intentionally.
I don't give a shit about world stature, to be honest.
I do.
Why? It doesn't affect you at all.
Yes, it
does. It does not affect you at all. Who cares about world stature? Honestly, what are you cared about what the Iranians think he is? You cared about what the French think? Well,
actually, you know what? I do not demean the Iranians. I think the Iranians are grotesque. You know why we do not like the Iranians?
I think the Iranians are getting screwed. I think the Iranians are a threat because the Iranians will be a business force, an economic force that cannot be reckoned with.
Because they won't go into the banks.
So let me ask you a question. Why is anybody ever figure out how, Iran is 6 months away from a nuclear bomb for the last 26 years, but poof, all of a sudden in 4 years, North Korea gets 32 miniature nukes, and they're totally the the world's greatest fucking threat. I mean, until like Charlottesville.
Well, you know my opinion about North Korea. I think
It's
they're a
bunch of
CIA
bullshit.
asset. I think it's a CIA asset. They pipe up whenever they're needed, and they come through every time. That's why they keep getting all the good money. I mean, actually, this is really, I mean, the whole thing is really just beyond comprehension that we're being worked around. But I get, this is where you and I agree. It's all a song and dance. But this is the deal. I believe that we have an obligation as adults to get actively engaged instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm the victim, blah blah. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do."
Absolutely. I think crying victimhood only works for one certain small subculture in the world. It doesn't work for
But
anybody
I
else.
also think we need to walk in love. And I think we need to be talking about loving each other and being friendly neighbors and accepting each other's religion.
I can agree with that, but I think the first step in love is to love yourself. And you don't
Exactly.
love yourself. You don't
Exactly.
love yourself unless you make your own decisions. And you can't let somebody who doesn't love you make your decisions if you truly love yourself, because they're not going to make decisions that are best in your best interest. And I mean that fully, about 100% about any sort of Israeli activity in this country. It is not in Americans' best interest at all. None of it. Not a fucking one of them. You think Wolf Blitzer has any kind of like flyover state Americans' interest at heart when he's like putting all that bullshit he puts on TV all the time? Remember what his job was before he became, spokesmouth for CNN? He was the AIPAC spokesperson.
Well,
I mean, the whole thing, look, we get to the point where 90% of the media companies are controlled by 6, conglomerates.
thank you, Bill Clinton, for that. That's the issue.
Well,
Bill Clinton did that intentionally. That was an intentional thing. Before Bill Clinton was president, this is what dramatically changed in America. And this is what I'm saying. The white supremacy that broke out this weekend and the fight and the violence and just the whole thing that happened.
But white supremacy didn't break out this weekend. And straight up honest, this weekend actually may be more detrimental to your side than you know, because at some point, people aren't.
Michael, what do you mean my
stupid.
side?
Wait up.
What do you mean my side?
I'm going to say for the left side, because honestly, you and I kind of have, we agree on many things. We got like a great big divide between us. And you're my friend, so I got no problem like bridging that divide and like discussing our stuff. But you do have to understand we're kind of like looking at things from opposite ends. And I'd like to say that this incessant calling of people anti-Semite, racist, bigot, blah, 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 it's just like in a marriage. If a woman accuses that husband of cheating every day when he comes home, one day he is actually going to cheat, because why the fuck is he going to endure the punishment of being called this all the time without getting the benefit of it? If you're going to call me a Nazi, I'll act like one. If that's
Michael,
the way you want to play the game.
I'm going to tell you what. Carrying the Confederate flag is supporting a Look, did we carry the flag of the British? We do have these.
The American flag. Okay, wait up. We carry the flag of the British. You know what the American flag is, right? The American flag is the British East India Company standard. That's the American flag. So we carry the British flag every day.
So you're saying that carrying the Confederate flag is not a symbol of racism and bigotry?
I don't think it is at all.
What do you think it is? Since you think it's not, what is it?
I think it's just like having a Yeti sticker on your truck, or having a Volcom sticker on your truck, or a Nike sticker on your back window. It's something. It's a brand you identify with. Look, when is the last Confederate?
What do you think that when they were saying blood and soil, blood and soil, blood and soil? What do you think that was?
You know what? I got the same opinion on blood and soil that I do when people like are running around chanting, "We will trade racists for refugees." You know what? You're not bringing the refugee into your house. At least these guys are standing up for what they believe in. That's theirs. They're protecting their own kind. And I can agree with that. I mean, look, immigration in this country is all kinds of screwed up, and I'm not anti-immigration. I think that this country thrives with immigrants. But you cannot bring in every goddamn single pobrecito from everywhere in here, because it doesn't work. You got to have people that are contributing to this place, making this place better, not necessarily grinding it down through whatever welfare shithole cultural destruction that's going on. So no, I'm not for like rampant unfettered immigration. I think if you come here,
I'm not for? Right way, I'm not for corporate profits. I'm not for corporations going down to South and Central America and paying people 34 cents an hour and sending their goods up here in the United States.
I'm absolutely
I'm not
against
for
that. And I think if you're an
the
American
United
company
States
and
creating
you take your products,
refugees.
I don't think we should take all the refugees. I don't think
Look,
that's
the United
number
States
one.
and the countries who created those refugees, and shouldn't be taking refugees. You're right. We ought to be rebuilding. We ought to be going in there and saying, "Hey,
we shouldn't be anywhere over there."
Well, we are,
not have a fucking thing to do with that place.
Created it. The United States created that situation.
The United States did not create it. The bank created it. That's the problem. The bank created it. The United States is just the muscle. The bank created it. The bank creates every fucking problem around the world. Every problem. Every country that's got any sort of national debt issue, the IMF comes in and says, okay, well, we'll help you solve this. You just give us access to your timber, your oil, your water, whatever infrastructure you've got. Every problem comes from the bank.
Can't argue on that point.
Look at Libya. Libya is a perfect example of everything stems from the bank. Gaddafi was in the process of making the Pan-African dinar. He wanted to distribute and circulate an actual gold coin. It would have blown the dollar out of the water. We had to go in there and kick their ass. And guess what? The United States did not recognize the new Libyan government until the new Libyan government set up a central bank. I thought it was really funny that dudes that are having a hard time driving like standard transmission Toyotas were able to set up a central bank in like 36 hours.
You know what, Michael? This gets back to the same conversation we're having about Israel. It's the same thing. The bankers all control the entire war machine. That is actually
it's the same thing. We keep on hitting on the common denominator, and at some point, it's got to become painfully obvious.
You know, in my prologue, I say they think that we're assets on a balance sheet, and that is not a joke. That is true. We are considered assets on a balance sheet. So we've only got like a minute and a half left. I want to thank you, Michael, for the lively conversation.
Lonnie, I love your show. I think you got the most guts of anybody out there. Even if I disagree with whatever you said, I really enjoy your focus. just re-aim it to like exactly where I think it needs to be.
Well, I have to say I'm going to give a big hug to all of my Jewish friends. And if anything that was said on this show really offends you, I apologize. But I think it's important for us to hear the opinions.
I'm going to say anything.
I personally, even if my opinion about Israel offends you, I'm sorry, but I don't believe this is the Israel of God. I just can't in my heart. This to me is not part of it. And just like I don't think the Christian church in America, the so-called holy rollers, the mega churches, they're not a church of God either. So just to be clear, I'm sort of a equal opportunity doubter. So anyways, Michael, your show is Primertime?
Yeah, it's Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
That's really
on YouTube.tv, where you get this and much more.
Yeah, well, you hear a whole different perspective. I find sometimes I listen to you on YouTube and I'm like, that's interesting. I don't comment because I don't want people to come after me. But look, we've got 10 seconds. I encourage everybody, put your courage feet on, walk with integrity, walk in love, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks, Michael.